Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another how-to video. This time we're going to be talking about the GENI network and how to log in and moving around a little bit in the interface. And before I get started, I thought I'd mention, what is GENI? Well, GENI is a research network that is supported by the National Science Foundation, and it is a national network, meaning that there are chunks of equipment that are sprinkled around the states. So, for example, NYU has what's called a GENI rack in their location. And you can access that rack and then actually request resources. Now, for us, mostly what that means is that we'll be asking for virtual machines to be set up that we can use in our experimentation. So if you want to know a little bit more about GENI, one of the best places to start is right here. So I'm going to click on About GENI. If you scroll down, so this shows sort of the network here where the racks are located. And a rack is exactly what it sounds like. So I'm just going to show you here. When I say rack, I mean an actual rack of equipment. And the racks have computing equipment and switching hardware in there, and the rack is physically located in either an ISP or a research center or a school, and it is connected through that school or organization's network. When you request resources, that is logically plumbed for you or connected for you at the time of your request. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys have done so far. I have asked you to request a logon, and when you get your login, you will use that to log into the GENI system, and then you're going to ask to join our project here for the class. And a project is just, think of it as a container or a logical collection of the folks that are working in the project. After you're part of the project, you can then create a slice. And a slice of a project is something that you can allocate resources to. Now, the nice thing about that is that you can request resources, you can set up a small logical network with virtual machines, and nobody else can change your topology or delete your resources. So that's very nice, and the resources will be available for you for the length of your experiment. And when you're done with it, you can release the resources by deleting your request. Now, an aggregate is one of those organizations that has provided resources. So you can almost equate an aggregate to a GENI rack or racks. And that's really all we'll talk about. It's a little more, there's a little bit more to it than that, but you'll see a list of aggregates in the interface that we'll work with in another video, and that aggregate will allow you to request resources, and your resources will be resident on that aggregate. So what I'm going to do right now is log in. Now, we are not part of, RIT is not part of the collection of universities that are tied to the GENI network. Well, there are several of us here that use GENI, but RIT isn't officially part of it. So when you log in, you will request access via the GENI project office. So you won't see RIT in that list. And so here I guess I never really logged out, but here I've logged in. And once I log in, you can see that I've got home, project, slices, profile. Now if I scroll down here, there's our project. And this is the one that you're going to request to join. And since I've got a couple of join requests, I might as well handle those right now. And we'll go ahead and add some members here. There we are. All right. Now I can't remember if I created a slice yet. I did create a slice. So here's my Hartpence slice. And we'll go over resources for that slice at another time. But I did want to point out two other ideas while we're while we're sitting here, well, maybe a third one. In your profile, one of the things that becomes important to us is SSH keys. Now you'll have to generate an SSH key pair. SSH keys have a private and a public key associated with them. And as you can see here, you're going to need to download your private key to your machine. So you'll generate it here, and then you click on the button to download the private key. Now you can download them both, but the important thing is that you remember where they are and which one is which, because we're going to need those later on. All right? So SSH keys, one of the hardest things once you learn how they operate is where they're stored on your machine and what you did with them. All right, now another thing that we're going to need as we move through the GENI resources is the Ssl certificate. Now this is part of the whole public and private key cryptography architecture. In fact, most SSL certificates contain a public key for whoever you're connecting to. So that's one thing. Make sure you handle your SSH keys. And again, the most important thing to remember is where you put them and which one is which. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to mention here, I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to go to what's called the GENI Experimenters page, because this is where you are going to start with your assignments. And on the Experimenters page, you'll see the GENI tutorials. And here's a whole collection of the GENI tutorials. They're step-by-step instructions on how to do things. So that's where you're going to find the instructions for your first couple of assignments. All right. So let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to cover in this particular video? Oh, I know. You are going to create virtual machines. And then once you create your virtual machines, you're going to want to talk to your virtual machines. The most common method that we have for connecting to a virtual machine and controlling that virtual machine is going to be the command line interface, but you guys are going to be remote. So these are not going to be machines that you'll be running in VMware Workstation or something like that. So you're going to need to SSH to those machines. There are a couple of ways to do that. The handiest way is to go through your browser. So I'm using Firefox, and what I have installed here is Fire SSH. Fire SSH allows me to open an SSH window inside my browser. So that's a very handy add-on for Firefox. So whatever platform you're coming to, Windows or Linux, or you're using a Mac, make sure that you have a way, or think about how you're going to access your virtual machines remotely from your machine. Okay? Well, I think that'll about do it for this particular video. The next time we come back, we'll take a look at exactly what we're going to do with our slices.